This is a training session regarding timesheet entry and processing. The heart of the payroll system is the timesheet entry and posting program. This is a feature-laden portion of the accounting system. In order to access it, open the Payroll menu and select Timesheets. The screen that comes into view is the Payroll Timesheets Batch Entry screen. On the left-hand side, we see a list of all the payroll batches. These can be used for entering and processing timesheet information. Batches can be inserted using the buttons below the batch entry screen. If we click on the Change button, we notice that on a particular batch, we can enter the user ID, the description of the batch, and a default detail type. As we are entering timesheets into this particular batch, they will be charged either to jobs, general ledger accounts, or pieces of equipment. When timesheet details are displayed on the timesheet entry screen, they can be sorted by timesheet date or by the description of the distribution, which means they will be sorted by job and by GL account. Here you can specify whether you want the program to remember the job number you entered, so it can be the default for the next timesheet you enter. The next checkbox allows us to specify whether overtime or premium hours will be allowed to be entered into this particular batch. Also, we can specify whether the batch will allow the changing of the default state on the timesheet record. If this box is checked, the system will check to see if time charged to budgeted cost codes will push the cost code over budget, and warn the user if this is the case. The next entry fields indicate what type of timesheets will normally be entered through this batch. If we click on Single Day, then every time a timesheet is inserted into this batch, the timesheet entry screen will automatically initially go to the Single Day Entry tab. Likewise, if we enter weekly, then every time we enter a new timesheet in this batch, it will automatically go to the weekly timesheet entry screen. As each timesheet is entered using the Single Day tab, it's assigned a default date. You can determine whether this default date should be today's date or the pay period end date selected for the time card. At the bottom, we can indicate whether this is a repeating batch. If it is a repeating batch, then once the timesheets are posted, the information is not deleted, but a copy is saved, so the same batch of timesheets can be posted again at a later date. On the right-hand side of the screen is a list box, which shows all of the timesheets that have been entered into the highlighted batch. These timesheets have been entered but not yet posted. In order to insert a new timesheet, we click on the Insert button. The timesheet entry screen now comes into view. The first item of business is to enter a pay period ending date. This is an important date and must be entered first. The system now asks for the employee. In this field, we could enter the employee's number or the employee's last name, or we can click on the ellipsis button or use the pull-down box to retrieve the employee information. Once we've chosen the employee, the system will present the timesheet for entering information. There are 5 different types of timesheet entry tabs available. Note that the one selected is the one we chose earlier as the default type for this batch. The first tab is the Single Day tab. If timesheets are to be entered through this tab, then we click on the Insert button, and the system will present us with a timesheet for one day. We indicate the date the work was done. We indicate whether the time is going to be charged to a general ledger account, a job, or a piece of equipment. If it is a job, we indicate the job and the cost code. If it is a general ledger account, we enter the account number. We can also edit the regular and overtime pay rates if necessary, although these should be correct because they were looked up from the employee record. We can now enter the number of regular and overtime hours that employee worked on this day. On the right-hand side, the system displays all the information that will be used for tax calculations and accruals when this particular timesheet is posted. To change any of these items, click on the Change button, and the system will allow you to handpick what type of calculation is to be done on this timesheet. Usually, you will not have to change any of these settings. We also have the ability to enter equipment usage if the equipment costing module has been purchased. The person whose timesheet is being entered may have been operating a backhoe or some other piece of equipment. If this is the case, you can log that time by clicking on the Equipment button, selecting a piece of equipment from the list by its ID, and entering how many hours this person used this piece of equipment, and the rate by which this piece of equipment will be charged to the general ledger or the job. Once the information has been entered in this timesheet, we click the OK button, and the system will display this information in the timesheet list box. The second type of timesheet which can be entered is a weekly timesheet. A weekly timesheet is basically a set of 7 single-day timesheets, which can all be entered at the same time. When we click on the Weekly tab, we notice that we have all 7 days of the week across the top of the screen, along with their dates. We can insert a timesheet line item into this list by clicking on the Insert button. Once again, we can enter the timesheet information. The only difference between this timesheet and the daily timesheet is that we do not indicate a date the work was performed. We simply enter the job number and cost code and the pay rates. Now we can enter how many hours were worked during the entire week. We can enter regular and overtime hours in these fields. When we click OK, a second weekly timesheet will appear, anticipating that we may want to enter another line item. If we are finished, then we can press the Cancel button. What we will see is the entered line items. If we've entered time to more than 1 day, we can click on the Single Day tab and see that the system has expanded the information from weeks to days, displaying the information we entered using the Weekly tab in a daily timesheet format. The next tab is the Bi-weekly tab. It's identical to the Weekly tab except for the fact that 2 weeks' worth of information can be entered in a single screen instead of 1. The next type of timesheet entry is salaried timesheets. After we click on the Salary tab and click on the Insert button, the system allows us to enter a salary amount for this employee. The detail type, the general ledger account or job, along with the job and cost code, are the same as on the other timesheets. The difference here is that on this timesheet we indicate the total hours worked and the total dollar amount the employee will be paid. If this is a salaried employee and we've entered annual salary information in their employee record, the system will automatically look up that amount and enter it into this field. We can leave it or change it to another amount. The tax and accrual codes may be changed if desired. Then we click on the OK button to finish our salaried timesheet entry. There will be times when you wish to pay a salaried employee his salary, but break up the distribution of the cost to multiple jobs or accounts. If this is the case, create one entry for each job the employee worked on with just the number of hours worked, leaving the amount field blank. Once all timesheets have been entered, enter the employee's weekly salary amount here, or click the Retrieve button to get the weekly salary from his employee record. Now click the Distribute button, and the computer will apportion his weekly salary to the individual salary timesheets according to how many hours were entered on each. The last type of timesheet is Other Pay. As we click on the Other Pay tab and click on the Insert button, we see a pull-down selection box, which allows us to select between taxable and non-taxable other pay. More other pay types may be added to this list through the Setup Payroll Options menu. If the selected pay type is taxable, The Tax and Accrual Codes section of the window will appear with the Change button, which will allow us to change our accrual codes and rates. We can now select the General Ledger Expense Account or job as the type. We indicate where this time is going to be charged. We indicate the rate or number of hours, or simply type in a dollar amount for this pay. The very last type of entry that can be made in this screen is one-time deductions. As we enter this screen, remember that when we set up our employees, we entered a number of standard deductions, or dollar amounts that will be taken out every time this employee is paid. In order to view those standard deductions, we click on the View Standard Deductions button. The standard deductions for this employee are displayed on the screen. They can be edited or added to at this point. We can now add one-time deductions on this screen by using the Insert button. A one-time deduction would be a dollar amount that's going to be taken out for this one pay period only. We click on the Insert button and indicate where the deduction is going to be posted to, the dollar amount of the deduction, the description of the deduction, and the standard deduction number that will be used to track this amount and display the deduction amount on the employee's check stub. As timesheets are entered into this record, the timesheet totals at the bottom of the screen are automatically updated. We now click on OK and our timesheet is saved. A new blank timesheet is automatically displayed on the screen, anticipating that we may want to enter another timesheet. If we're finished entering timesheets, simply click the Cancel button. We can now continue with the processing of our payroll batch. As you can see, we can tag any number of payroll batches by clicking on the Tag column. We can then use our three buttons at the bottom of the screen to process the tagged batches. The first button is the Change Dates in Tagged Batches button. This is usually used for a batch of repeating timesheets, such as salary timesheets. We indicate that we would like to add 7 days or change the dates in the batch to a specified date. Once we click the Proceed button, the system will go through all of the timesheets in the batch and apply the change. The next button is the Proof List Tagged Batches button. This button allows us to print the timesheet proof listing of all the timesheets in the tagged batches. When we click on this button, we can insert or change the set of limits for the report. Normally, we do not set any limits for printing of proof listings because we want to see all the timesheets. We simply click on the Print button. The system will print a proof listing of the timesheets that are in the tagged batches. We can use this proof listing to check our timesheet entries for accuracy. The third button is the Post Tagged Batches button. If we click on this button, the system will ask for a fiscal period. The default will be the current fiscal period, but we can change that to any fiscal period we choose. We now click on Proceed with Posting, and the system will post our timesheets. As it posts the timesheets, the system will print a number of different reports. These reports include a summary of totals for the entire posting, summaries of payroll accruals, detail reports on each employee included in the posting, and a list of all transactions that post to the general ledger. Once all of these reports have been printed, the system gives us one last chance to either confirm or reject this posting by pressing either the Finish or the Undo button. We can review all of the posting reports and look for any discrepancies or inaccuracies on the calculated taxes. If they are fine, we can click on the Finish button. Otherwise, we can click the Undo button, and the system will undo the posting as if it had never happened. This completes this session on timesheet entry and processing.